Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you all about, I was going to start a video on Aries and go through the zodiac for one video for Aries, one video for Taurus, etc., but now I'm going to actually just talk about the elements: fire, earth, air, and water. Now, I guess I have to give background information in case you're one of those people that really needs to understand why there's the elements. A long time ago, let's just start right off the bat. A long time ago, let's just say that everyone thought the universe consisted of these four elements. Now, theoretically it still does, because these elements aren't necessarily, it's not necessarily simple that if that were the case, we would look around and all we would see is fire, earth, air, and water. We have more than that, you know. But fire isn't just fire. It's actually not, like, when we talk about the fire signs, we're not just talking about fire. We're talking about what fire represents, which is very distinct from the other three elements, and it's necessary, and it creates 1/4 of existence that's necessary. And fire represents energy, any kind of energy, movement, the starting of something, the ability to continue something. It's the ability to, it's the kind of life, like you need fire for life to exist. You need all the other elements for life to exist. But fire is the action portion. It's the beginning. It's will. It's our will to do something. It's our belief in something. I'll get more into that, but for the most part it's action, and it's spirituality. It's our sense to everything else. It's the feeling behind everything, in a sense. And earth is tangibleness. Now, very earthy people will understand this. They'll understand this in every way. With earth, if you have a lot of earth, you would lack a lot of other things, but you would be practical. You would be able to use your physical surroundings. You would understand them. You might be very keen on physical things. Like Virgo, which is an earth sign, is very analytical and able to recognize every little detail about everything in the physical world. Now, if you mix fire and earth, you would see the spirituality behind every physical thing. You would sense its energy, its life force. But without fire, you wouldn't be able to, well, first of all, things couldn't exist. You need all four. But using your earth senses, you can see something in the physical realm and use it practically. You could eat something. You could put it around your arm if it's going to help something in some way. In the practical sense, you could use an arm brace if you broke your arm, and it would work and it would help you out. In an aesthetic sense, you could wear a bracelet and it would look pretty. And a lot of earthy people, like Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus is all about beauty. Now mix earth, which is physical, and beauty, and you would admire and want to be beautiful and just really focus on physical beauty. And I guess that's pretty much earth. Air is ideas and thought. It is intention. Whereas fire can be belief in something, a belief in a higher power, a belief, like fire without earth is just a belief in something that you can't see. Air is actually the ability to create. Like air is, before the physical thing is manifested, you need to have an idea first. And with enough intention, air can actually manifest anything into existence. Air is symbolic of kind of nothingness, because you can see through air. You breathe in, we know it exists, but in reality, before we studied, like, scientifically, we didn't. It's invisible. It's the part of your brain, or your mind, sorry, because it's not part of your brain. Your brain is the physical aspect, the earth of it. Your blood could be symbolic of fire, because your blood gets you moving, but with air, it's the thought that enters you, and the thought courses through your veins and goes into your blood, and the thought creates action. You need thought. Thought, like a lot of people, some people would say thought is like the original element in a sense, but it needs to continue. It's not the only original element, because without water, you wouldn't have much thought. Because, let's move on to water. Water is emotion, water is feeling, it is wanting, it is desire, it is the universe, really. It's the actual beginning of everything. If you look at most religions, like Christianity, they all have this common background of, before anything existed, there was darkness and water. Darkness and water get along so well. Fire is light. It brings positive energy. It brings optimism. But water is the original kind of negative energy that existed before anything. It was slow, at a slow rate, and it was... But water always exists. Water is the one element that can exist for eternity. It erodes every other element. Water can destroy every other element. If you think about it, it actually can. And in scientific terms, we knew this before we knew science, and science proves it. And this is how spirituality and science mix together. Now, the elements that we see today, we have like a huge list, and that those elements are actually very specific. You could take the 4 elements and put them in the table of scientific elements, whatever you call it, the periodic table of elements, and they would fit within each one. I don't think fire does. Fire is actually the movement of atoms. Earth is dense atoms, like metals, I think would be considered earth. Yeah, the metals are earth, the gases are air, the liquids are water, and the fire is the movement behind all of those. Now, every human body and being has all of these intertwined in them. We need those to exist. But in astrology is kind of more focused on personality and appearance and how you are created. So a fiery person, or an Aries with a lot of fire in their chart, or a Leo with a lot of fire, or a Sagittarius with a lot of fire, would be more into movement. They would be... You can look at them and just see like the fiery energy about them. And once you understand that the concept of fire in every aspect of the word, they embody that. They embody it in a sense that it becomes their personality. Now, every one of us has more than our personality. And our personality, like, we have more than our persona. Our persona is how we appear, how we act, how our will manifests, and but we're made up of a lot more. If you look at the wheel of the zodiac, they each incorporate a part of aspect of life. Aries is naturally your personality. It's the first house, it's the ascendant. Everyone has an ascendant. You could have it on Aries or any of the other 12 signs. But with a fire sign ascendant, which means you were born, and that constellation was rising above the horizon, is very important. Now, the descendant is the one that's going down. The descendant is the opposite of your personality, so it's something that you're lacking. So with your ascendant, and if it's a fire sign, you would appear to be a very fiery person right off the bat when you meet someone, because that's how you cope with the world. That's how you've entered the world, and that's how you will continue meeting new things and coping with it. So with a fire sign, you'll cope with everything in a fiery way. That's how you'll view the world. But your opposite sign is your descendant, which, if you're fire ascendant, you'll be an air descendant. And I'm the opposite. I'm an air ascendant, which is why I'm doing an astrology video, because I understand. Fire sign people they aren't capable of looking at the whole scope of astrology. I mean, they are, but you need air elements to really... Air elements are like like Aquarius is an air sign and it rules astrology for a reason, because it's ideas. It's ideas, and it's the whole overview of everything. It's what surrounds everything. It's the whole of humanity. Fire sign is one person. A fire sign is the ability to take that one person and move it into action. So if your ascendant is fire, that means it's you, basically. It's your personality. Your descendant is the other person, and it's an abstract other person. It's usually who you're attracted to because you're lacking. So if you're fire ascendant, you're lacking air, which means that you would need to wouldn't need, but you would be compelled, and your spirit would want you to seek out those air people, or karma would come around and just be like, look at this person. You're gonna feel a magnetic attraction towards this person, especially if they are completely opposite than you. This could be a bad thing because in the physical world, you might not be able to cope with this person, and there could be a lot of issues. And astrology can help you find a way around this, find a way around on how to live or cope or deal with people that are different than you. Or you could just, like I did for some time, I'm an earth sign with a lot of Capricorn in my chart, so I, for a long time, looked just for earth sign people in my life. And that didn't happen. It's funny because a lot of my best friends now their sun signs or rising signs are signs that aren't supposed to get along with my sun sign or rising sign. And I think that's, honestly, I personally believe that is like there's a spiritual reason behind that. There's a karma reason behind it. I'm supposed to meet these people and get along with them. Or find a way to and learn. Like, we're all supposed to learn. We're all supposed to incorporate all the 4 elements in our chart, because we all have the 4 elements in our chart. We have to access them somehow. Like, there's the 12. The 12 houses are really, really symbolic of this. You can take any part of life and fit them into the 12 houses, and then you can look at your chart and say, how do I relate to this part of my life? And you can find a planet in that house and a sign in that house. The sign is the energy that you put into that aspect of your life. The planet is more so the karma on that part of your life. So I'll get more into like this later. But I mean, every planet's connected to an element. Every house is connected to an element. Like I say, the watery houses. There's the watery houses, the fiery houses, the airy houses, and the earthy houses. The earthy houses are materialism. In a sense, materialism and values. And earth signs they value things. They're all about values and kind of about morals. Fire signs are more about morals. They stick to the like moral attitude, and that like they're very inspiring because they feel like they know what's right, and they stick to it, and they go ahead and charge at it most of the time, and they have a sense of moral integrity. And then Capricorns do too, and that's an earth sign, sorry, but like Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo are more about ethics. What's ethical? And what's practical, and how can I focus on what's practical, and how can I practically do this in my life, and what's most efficient? So the 3 houses that rule over the earth signs, which doesn't mean that you'll have those signs in those houses, but they feel comfortable in those houses. So the 2nd house, and 2 is a very earthy number. It's more about diplomacy. It's about really finding balance and peace in your physical surroundings. And how you find in your chart, it's how you connect with your physical surroundings and your possessions, for like your personal possessions, not other people's possessions, but how you use your money and how you buy things and how you keep things and how you react to your physical environment. But other houses rule other kind of physical environments, like the 4th house, which is a water sign, and water's all about comfort. It rules your home. And then the 6th house rules business, in a sense. It kind of rules day-to-day chores, like what you must do to maintain this physical existence. Or, not must, but Virgo is very focused on things that are pretty essential, and the details of life. And then the 10th house is another earth house, which rules over your career. And your career can help you. It connects with the 2nd and 6th house because it can help you. It's connected with what you do every day. It's also connected with how you make money. It's also, like, the 10th house also rules social standing. Earth signs are very much, they're not about how you appear to others, but they want to create something concrete, and that something concrete will give them a reputation. And that reputation is important to the earth signs. So it's kind of about how they appear, but it's like a solid appearance. They're solid, concrete thing that they leave in the world. So all those 3 houses of the earth houses connect. And the fire houses are, I'll just go over briefly about the other elements in the houses that they relate to. So the 1st, 5th, and 9th house are fiery. The 1st house is about personality. The 5th house is connected to adventure and fun, in a sense, and pleasure and children. Anything that's like uplifting, inspiring, that isn't really concrete or physical, but the feeling behind it and creativity. Like the 9th house is all about, the fire houses are all about creativity. 1st house, it's about coming from the universe and creating who you are and being that and embodying it. The 5th house is more about taking something and maybe like having a good time with someone else. It could be like you're in love with this person and you feel a connection with them and you just have a good weekend together. Like you drink, you go party, you dance, and you procreate together. And then you create children, and that's created out of love. And love is a fire. Like in this sense, what I mean from love is a very fiery thing. It's physical. Like the 5th house rules sex, but the pleasure of sex. Not necessarily the mystery of sex, but just the pleasure of it. The 9th house is focused on religion and beliefs. This is like fiery. It's you could say it's airy, but it's mostly fire because of what you believe in. It's morals. The fire signs have strong morals. They're born and they just kind of have these morals, and some other people don't completely understand why. Less morally convicted people. Now, I'm not saying fire signs are technically the most moralistic people in the world, but they have this sense of just knowing, and that's what fire does. It just kind of gives you something that's like, wow, where did that come from? It's not like physical, but... And so the 9th house rules religion, and it's kind of like structuralizing these beliefs and kind of putting them all together. And that's the 9th house. The air houses are the 3rd, 7th, and 11th. They're all about people, communication, gatherings, communion, marriage. Whereas the 5th house might rule love and partnership, in a sense, and kind of creating something together with another person. The 7th house is the opposite of the 1st, and this is really cool. So the 1st house is all about me, 7th house is about the other person. But like, with me, an Aries, which is might be strong in the 1st house, or someone that has a strong 1st house may just focus on like what they want and who they are. But that's not everything. One person cannot be everything. So the 7th house kind of rules the other side of the coin that creates the whole universe. So the 1st and the 7th house together is kind of like 2 complete opposites, night and day, but all opposites together, and that creates partnership, marriage, and that's the 7th house. And Libra rules the 7th house, and that's an air sign. And air signs are all about finding balance and finding opposites. And this may kind of frustrate a fire sign, because fire signs are just like, no, it's just about being yourself. Who cares about like the opposite? But then every once in a while they're like, okay, yeah, I need some air in my life. Because, air fans the flames. But too much air can make the flames go out. Whereas water completely destroys flames and it makes steam. And that's why water and fire are very, very different. But they're not opposite because they're not symbiotic. Earth and water are symbiotic. With earth, you need water. Otherwise, earth can't grow. And earth loves to see things growing in a slow way. Water loves to nurture, but then they can over-nurture. And water just loves just the watery aspect of nurture, nurture, nurture. And an earth sign might be like, ugh, too much emotion. Like, I like emotion, but ugh. A water sign might be like, protect, protect, but like in a motherly sense. Earth is very fatherly. It's protective in a physical way. Water is protective in an emotional way. So, but the air signs are all about relationships and connection. So the 3rd house is communication, which is ruled by Gemini. The 7th house is partnerships and marriage and law, because law is about justice and finding a good balance between opposites and finding what the median and middle is of that situation. The 11th house is groups of people. It can represent the whole world. It's about finding a good balance between a group of friends or finding world peace. And that's why it rules Aquarius. Aquarius is all about world peace and there's a lot of contradiction there. And Aquarius understands that it's very difficult, and the complications of finding world peace because of the overwhelmingly intense differences between a group of people. Any group of people, even 4 people, 3 people could have so many differences. And finding that balance is important to the air signs. They like to find balance and kind of keeping things light and superficial. The water signs are more intense. Other signs might not understand them in that way because air signs may be just too objective. Water signs are more subjective. They are focused on how other people feel. And it's really important, you know. They actually understand how we feel is important. Like, really important. So you may, on a superficial level, have a really good relationship or communication between another person. But water signs can actually empathize and feel, is this good on an emotional level? If it isn't, a good emotionally developed person would be like, this isn't good for me. No, it's not good for my spiritualness. It's not good for my soul. I don't feel good. Why would I want to continue doing this? And all of those houses are mystical. And they rule over protectiveness and spirituality. Well, it's like spirituality, but in the sense of the soul. The sense of, like, we all die. Like, the water signs and the water houses understand that death happens. They understand, like, kind of the harsh realities of life, but they're also sensitive, so they don't like to hear about it. So they understand that, but, like, they create a bubble around themselves. Like, the water signs are protective of themselves. They live in this bubble because they understand they need to protect themselves emotionally. Because emotions are, like, the most important thing in life. And water always exists, so why not bow down to water and just give in? Water signs know how to give in. Like, water signs know how to have fun. They look past morals because they say, I see beyond that, and I feel, which I feel is the Cancer motto, which is the 4th house, and you feel within your home and your family, and it's just this feeling. And family is important because you feel between them, and you have a connection with your mother, and that's a very Cancer thing. And the 8th house is about death and mystery. And Scorpios understand the 8th house, and the 8th house can be, I want to say harsh reality, but it's more finality. The 8th house is about final things that happen in your life. They need to happen in order for new things to begin. Like, things need to end. And it's good because, like, people might get bored and something needs to end and you might mourn it. And then you transform yourself. You get better. So you need that 8th house to die in some way. Something in your life needs to die in order to evolve. And then from the 8th house, you move on to a fire house. So all the water houses are death, and fire houses are the beginning of life. Water is right before fire. So the water houses are before fire. Fire is after the water houses. So after the 8th house is the death of, like, Scorpios may feel they understand death, and they're just, like, a very intense life, and it's all about intensity. And then a Sagittarius is, like, carefree, because it's a sign after, and it's like, I went through that, and now I can live, and now I can think, and I'm free. I'm free of death, and it's beyond death. And that's what fire is, basically. So fire is more about movement, and without thought, or without feeling. Water is just feeling, without thought, and without movement. Without action, I mean, not movement, because water does move, and it moves people in a slow, intense way that always works. Always. It's final. And the 12th house is the last house of the zodiac. The last house of the wheel. The 12th house rules everything mysterious, because it's the finality, and we humans, we have limits. And water sign is beyond those limits. The 12th house is beyond everything. So we have like insight into the 12th house a bit. Some spiritual people have a very strong connection with the 12th house. The 12th house is the end all be all of spirituality. It is finality of and the evaporation of the physical world. It's looking at the whole universe from the very beginning, even before the beginning, to the very end, beyond the end. It's beyond the end. And water is eternal, and the 12th house understands this. It's a very spiritual house, and not spiritual in the fiery sense and action. It's spiritual in the sense that it knows everything. It's beyond everything. And in a sense, the 12th house is a prison, because humans in a physical world don't want. They have to have the other elements. Water is just so imprisoned. It's just so mental and emotional, and we can't handle that. So the 12th house is viewed as prison, because until we reach that enlightenment, the 12th house is something that we view as constricting on our physical and spiritual beings. And until we understand that we don't need the physical world, we don't actually need anything. A very enlightened person and a wise person, as you get older, you understand, I don't need, like, as you're younger, you might be like, oh, when you come out of the womb, physical thing may be like, oh, I love this. I'm going to hold on to it. But then it decays. It breaks. Unless you spend a lot of money. And then you spend more and more money, and you realize more and more that the physical world is not eternal. And then an air sign may have an idea or a concept, but that idea or concept can only go on for so long, and they get bored. And the water signs, finally, they understand that their feelings, like Cancer understands its feelings, Scorpio then understands death, and then finally, after feelings and death, which are so concrete and eternal, you see spirituality. You see that your soul goes on forever, and it's a loop, and it's eternal, and that you're a part of everything. So the 12th house knows that you're part of everything, and the 6th house is way more physical and about the details of the physical world, and it separates everything and organizes everything. The 12th house doesn't need to organize anything. It is everything.